Welcome to the last episode of Season 2 of Failing Our Way to Success, a podcast all about how success doesn't need to define you, but is a pivotal step on every journey. I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Bridie Castiel. Hello, Bridie, a fellow Brit.
Yes.
Bridie Castiel is the global digital brand team lead at Monday.com, leading strategy and storytelling via social, influencer, and community spaces to shape mass market growth and enterprise appeal for a leading B2B work platform. Her background was as a social media strategist leading a boutique agency for SMBs in Israel. Originally from the UK and living in Israel for 11 years, which is a really long time, actually.
It feels like a long time as well.
I didn't realize how long you've been here for.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time.
Double the time of me. So wait, you came to Israel?
So wait, that must mean that we met right after you made Aliyah.
Yeah, I started ESN 6 months after I made Aliyah.
Wow,
which
okay.
is crazy.
Yeah,
and
that is
not
crazy.
recommended at all. But yeah. So
But you're here and it's wonderful, so.
It was a big adjective, but yeah, I'm here. And depends on the day. So you came 11 years ago.
Yeah.
What brought you to Israel?
So I actually first came to Israel when I was like 10 and a half, 11. I moved with my mum and brother. We moved to Mitzpe, which is next to the Dead Sea.
Wow.
Which was the culture shock of all culture shocks, I think.
From Oxford. You're from Oxford, right?
No, from Cambridge.
Sorry.
Careful now, careful.
Cambridge. From Cambridge to Mitzpe.
Yeah. I grew up in lots of different places, but yeah, I'd say sort of outside Cambridgeshire is like my my main home. So yeah, we moved to Mitzpe, and it was a really tough adjustment.
I'm sure. How long were you there for?
Yeah. So I stayed about 2 years or just under 2 years, and then I moved back to live with my dad back in Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I finished sort of secondary school, high school there. But I maintained friendships because my mum was here in Jerusalem in like the whole of my teens. So I was always between the two places, and I had friends and, long summers here and stuff like that. So I think when I got to my like early adulthood and I'd sort of exhausted my first proper grown-up job and was sort of ready for the next step, I was thinking, okay, what do I do here now? And a trip to Israel to see my friends seemed like a reasonable thing to do, and I came back and I just didn't want to leave. So basically been here ever since.
Wow, you're more Israeli than me. You're like proper.
I don't know if I feel.
Did you come with
Israeli,
Hebrew?
No, I think I came with some stored in the back of my brain.
Okay, fine.
But not when I got here it was tough.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very tough transition. And what were you doing professionally in England?
So my first role was actually in a telecoms consultancy, a really small business, and it was B2B. It was selling, massive phone packages and phone systems to local businesses. And I loved it, and I sort of first fell into the sales side of it, and over time started to work on the marketing side of the business. And it was really through that by accident that I fell into social media, because it was around that time that like Facebook business pages became a thing. That was a brand new feature. So all the businesses were like, oh, we should have a Facebook business page, I guess, but they didn't really know what to do with it. So I was sort of nominated as the young person who understands social media, and you manage the Facebook business page.
That's how it worked back in the day, really.
I think that's probably still how it works sometimes. But yeah, so I really fell into the whole thing by accident.
In those days, Facebook was a very different place for businesses. Were you able to get ROI on a Facebook business page back in the day?
I don't think the goal was ROI.
It was more branding.
It was. I don't even think it was branding. Like, people just had no idea. They just. I guess it was similar to the AI conversation now. It's kind of like, we know this is going to be important. We know this is something we should be doing. We don't quite know why or how yet. That was kind of where it was at.
And you did BNI in England, right?
Yes.
Now, for those, this is a very niche reference that no one else is going to understand, but BNI is like the behemoth of networking. They have it all over the world. It's what ESN is inspired by, for sure. And it's very rare to find a fellow ex-BNI it's a very small niche.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy doing BNI?
Yeah, I did. I always loved the networking, getting out of the office and meeting people, and that was really, because I was on the sales side of things as well. Like that was my bread and butter, is building those relationships, and and they were local relationships as well, like other small businesses. So it was really nice, and I think it really formed a foundation for me for how I brought myself into the rest of my business.
It makes me really happy to hear. I think networking is great, so I'm happy that you did it in Israel. Okay, so you came in England. So you came to Israel in 20. What year are we now?
2014.
That's a really, wow.
Yeah.
That's really, okay, you came in 20, and where did you live?
So I moved originally to Jerusalem, which was sort of
Where your
the
mum
familiar playing ground for me.
Do not see me with Jerusalem at all, I have to say.
No, I don't. There's a lot of things that didn't fit, but that was sort of where my friends were. And then I think we were at the age where I was 21. So, all my friends were just getting out of the army. They were starting jobs, or they were going traveling. They were sort of finding where their feet were going to land. And a lot of people were moving more into the Merkaz. They were back then, the job space in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem was really not where it is today. There's been a lot of development. There weren't really many opportunities for, certainly not Olim or children of Olim who sort of have that duality to them. So yeah, everyone sort of started to migrate. And eventually I migrated to the Merkaz as well.
Yeah, which is why, were you in Tel Aviv or you went to Ra'anana at that point?
No, I moved to Ra'anana. My partner at that time, soon to be husband's family, were in Ra'anana. So it made sense that we would sort of be closer to his family. And then I sort of migrated closer and closer and closer to Tel Aviv.
What were you doing when you first arrived work-wise?
Work-wise, so I actually, when I left my job in the UK, a few of the customers that I'd been serving were kind of like, hey, you've been doing the Facebook page for them, right? Like, I know that you're moving and whatnot, but would you want to do a few hours here or there for us as well? So I was like, yeah, why not? That makes sense. So I was doing a little bit of that, and I was also waitressing, and I was kind of like, I was very quick to grow up. I moved out before I even turned 18. I had my first job from age 17. So by the time that I'd moved here, I was already like 4 years into being a grown up, and I was kind of trying to unpack that a little bit and go, okay, maybe I'm going to travel. Maybe I'll go to uni after all. Like, what am I doing here? So I was kind of good with a slower pace and not jumping into anything and adjusting to the
I really love that.
culture.
I think it's such a nice way to make aliyah, is to take that expectation off yourself and kind of be like, okay, I'm going to enjoy the journey, because I think that's not how I approached aliyah, of course, because I'm very type A. And really had to work on that. And I think I came in and I was like, I have to succeed. Like, and I think it's really impossible to have that mentality. And I had tons of, the word in English is anxiety attacks when I first came to Aliyah, because I put so much, no one was putting on me, of course. I was putting tons of pressure on myself. I think your way is so much more appropriate for when you move to Israel, of just being like, okay, well, we'll take it slowly and we'll kind of see what happens. And I think is a much more healthy way to approach it.
It really depends where you're at in life. I was really young when I got here. I don't know how old you are, but
I was 26. I was still also very like.
No, it's young, but I mean, I had my a 1-year-old by the time I was 26. But I say, I pack things in quite.
I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, and like literally having. I mean, I remember calling my then boyfriend, now husband, being like, I'm having an anxiety attack, and I had to like come and like. Just feel, I was like, it's a lot to come to a new country and also want to learn the language and also want to succeed in business. And also be an old pan, and it's a lot. So I think
too many things at once.
Yeah, and it was really unnecessary. Like when I met my husband at 26, he was still finishing university. So like there was no need for me to just like, it wasn't like everyone at my age was finishing university or starting their job. So I could have really been kinder to myself, but that isn't really my modus operandi, unfortunately.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and hopefully that's a lesson that you can take with you. That I have to say, it's a lesson that I've really been digging into in the last couple of years myself. It's like I've always also been okay, I do want to succeed, and I want to do it quickly, and I want to move through the stages in life. But also understanding that sometimes when you're feeling uncomfortable or you're not quite sure of whether you're satisfied with where you are, sometimes a little bit of patience. You don't have to make quick changes to like big changes all the time. Like sometimes you can sit in it and be patient with it a little bit and sort of see what unfolds, and then things come of that.
It's interesting to say that, because I remember in like the third year of my business, it was going okay, but I really felt stuck. And I remember speaking to business coaches, and they wanted to charge me like an obscene amount of money. And I remember feeling like I'm just not sure how to do this. Like I'm not sure how to grow. And I look back and I wish someone had told me it just takes time. Like there's nothing that you can do apart from work really hard. You just have to have patience. And I really did not understand that. I know, because business coaches are trying to sell you that, they'll help you succeed, but I don't think there is really a shortcut unless you get investment or whatever. Like, you know, you just have to sit with it and being comfortable in the fact that it does take time to build a business. You know, most people don't make profits till their 5th year.
Yep.
And I think that I really brought myself to very difficult places had I just said, actually, you know, it just takes time. I think patience is so key.
Yes, and or not. You know, if you'd sort of sat back and gone, yeah, it'll just come, then you probably wouldn't have put the same intention
you have to
into
work
it.
hard. Yeah, it's not like you can just sit back, relax, and be like, oh,
But
come to
that
me.
working hard is also having the awareness, like, okay, something's not working here. What is it? And how do I tackle it? And do I need more support? Or do I need to get an outside opinion and maybe shift something? You know, it's that.
Yeah, there were problems with the strategy. It's interesting what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm oversimplifying probably what is a very complex issue. I do hear what you're saying because I did need to re-strategize and certain things weren't working and I had to completely shift. But that also came with time of knowing my mark. I'm saying it all.
Yeah, it all falls into place.
I guess it all comes down to just being kind to yourself, essentially.
For sure. I do think there's something in threes, like.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something that impacts women more than others, or if it's a personal thing. But like I find in relationships, in businesses, in roles, in everything in life so far, I found like every 3 years comes like this sort of moment of shift or feeling stuckness, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like the natural, like, okay, you started, you had the ramp up, you sort of got over the first hump, and now you are where you are, and you're not quite at the peak. It's not been long enough, but you're not quite seeing over the hill yet. It's like it's a really interesting place.
I'll look into it more. Interesting. I haven't thought about it. I'll look into it and get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started doing what you're saying in freelance work, and then kind of did you just continue doing freelance? Talk me through that journey.
Yeah, things sort of snowballed from there, really.
What year is this? When I'm 2015.
Yeah, we're still in 2014, 2015.
Early days of social.
Yeah. Very, very much the early days of social.
I've been doing it for a really long time.
Yeah. Where are we now? I mean.
Yeah. No, but even when I met you, I'm saying you've been doing it for a while. You'd had the business for a while. I didn't know.
So I started really as a generalist. Like at the beginning, I was taking sort of any freelance work that would come my way. It was a lot of clients from England, from the sort of same circle that I'd come from. It was, Bridie, are you handy with a website? This was before the days of Wix. This was before the days of, you know, drag and drop options. Bridie, what do you know about email marketing? Like, you know, I really got to have like an understanding of the full funnel on a small business level. So it kind of started with, you know, where's the Facebook page? But at that point, you asked a great question, like, you know, what was the ROI like on the Facebook pages? Well, it was kind of one of those, we'll do it, but we don't know where it fits yet. So let's also do the other things.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really enough work for me to only specialize in that.
There weren't ads yet in 2015.
So not that I recall.
I don't think
not
so.
that I was dabbling in. No. And so, you know, it was like I was getting a really good amount of experience and like, okay, how do I build like a whole marketing picture where social plays a really important role of it, but it's still not quite there yet. So like, what does the rest look like? So that was where I really got to have experience in like, okay, what is the full user journey when a customer or potential customer comes across a business? What do they need to know about us? Where do they need to get that information from? What does the website need to say? What does email marketing need to say? How do we get them to subscribe? Where are we getting those leads from? Like the whole picture. And over time I started to understand like A, the space was developing, the social space was developing, and B, I was understanding what I enjoyed in it, where like my passion was. And my passion was where actually connecting and networking with people was meeting these online spaces. And that was my whole social life growing up, because I grew up, you know, in the MySpace, Bebo, if you're from
MSN.
the UK, MSN, you know, you get home from school, you're straight on the, you know, you're talking to the friends that you've been talking to all day. That was my form of communication. It's still my most comfortable form of communication. So yeah, that sort of subsection of like where business and strategy and marketing and selling to people meets this new way of communicating, that intersection, I understood that was my jam. So I started to niche down. I started to let go of clients that I didn't enjoy or didn't have the skills for anymore, or didn't want to have the skills for. And through that, I also started to build my presence more here and start working with mostly Anglo or Lean businesses here.
How did you get clients here? Was mostly word of mouth?
Yeah, well, social.
Yeah.
Same, right? Same. But
Facebook groups, probably, I'd imagine.
Facebook groups, Yeah, Facebook and Instagram really like my mini worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely heard of you when I started my business in 2019, which is when we intersect to meet for the first time. You already were known, and I definitely heard of you and seen the work that you've done. So you definitely built a very, very nice name for yourself. Now, spoiler alert, you no longer run the agency.
That's right.
You now work at Monday.com.
I do.
We're going to talk more about your failures, and I suspect that that's kind of like, all going to work into it. So I don't want to kind of spoil the ending. But in terms of closing the agency at the time, which you closed when?
Right before I onboarded Monday, so 2022, early 2022.
God, you survived COVID and then thought, actually, now is the time to kick it in. Yeah. Wow, that's...
Yeah, listen, I got to a stage where there were a number of things that led me to that point, right? I was also getting divorced. There was a lot of change in my life. Running a business, in this country is incredibly, incredibly hard.
So hard. So hard.
The taxes are high. But we were doing a lot of business, and I really enjoyed the services that we're providing. I think we really nailed the niche that we were working in. But I kind of got to a point where I felt like I didn't really have anything to learn from. Not that there wasn't more to learn, but the niche that I built myself into, I'd kind of maxed out. There wasn't really, we're going to get to failures, there wasn't really that much more room for me to try and fail at things because I'd nailed that small piece of it. And I really believe we were making an impact for people. And I really believe that the people on my team were learning how to nail that as well. But I felt tired of having the same conversations, of educating the same kinds of things, of hosting the same kinds of workshops, the same kind of webinars. And in marketing, that's what really you have to do. You have to repeat the message. But for me, I just felt like, it was time for putting myself outside of my comfort zone a little bit.
I feel like what's interesting with you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was never really an issue of a lack of clients. Like that was never... From 2014 until you closed, that was kind of never really your challenge. Because you're very good at what you do, and in Israel there's just a lack of what you do. Even to this day, there's not really enough social media managers, and the ones there are, if they're any good, they're booked up. Yep. So that it's interesting. That's very rare in a small business owner, especially in Israel, where that's kind of always the challenge is getting clients. But for you, that wasn't the challenge. But there are other challenges one can have. It's not, and kind of I think often business owners forget that actually. There's so much more that goes into it. And for you, it sounds like, you had clients, but you personally felt unfulfilled. And that's really what it came down to. Yeah.
And I think also to speak frankly about business, when you're working with small businesses, I felt I was very passionate about this. I was really passionate about making sure that whatever service we provided, we also provided an equal amount of education. That the people that we were working with were also walking away with a better sense of knowledge of what they should be doing here in this space, how they can build their businesses, how they can do some of it themselves. Because for small businesses, there will always be, especially the one-man bands or the very, very small units, like there will always be a limit to how much they should invest in advertising and in social media marketing. I can't go around charging lots and lots and lots of money to this crowd. I could have built a new customer base that has a bit more freedom, a bit more money, but that wasn't what I was passionate about at the time. So I kind of had my own hands cuffed in the sense of there is a cap here as to what I can charge for the impact that I can make for this kind of small business. And it leaves you in a place where, okay, we can try to scale this. We can bring on more team members. They're probably going to have to be quite junior team members, fresh into the space. They're going to need a lot of training and a lot of support from me. So then you've got, okay, you're a full-time, front of the brand. You've got all of the business elements to run. You've got massive amounts of training to do on a continuous basis. You need to be involved in all of the clients that your account managers are touching base with because they still need that support. It's a lot.
I'm exhausted listening to it, to be honest with you. And
it's a lot. So there was no lack of business, but the possibility for scale there within that. So yeah, that's kind of what happened there.
I want to say something. I know it's controversial.
Go on, love it.
I think to scale a business targeted at small businesses in Israel is not necessarily possible. And I've encountered that same challenge myself and have moved. I don't see the future of ESN in many, many years. I do not see with the small business community necessarily because I think the limits there are very clear.
Yeah.
And my passion is there and my love is there, and I would always support the small business community. And, I have my groups and I have my mega event, and they are my passion and my love, but there's nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
And that was also a big learning curve for me as well. Because if you really tackle really want to I want to say succeed, I mean really bring in, some serious dollar, it's not in the small business community here in Israel.
Yeah. No, 100%. I don't think anywhere in the world, I
feel like in England it's more. Let's look at BNI. Let's say BNI is huge in England and is targeted at the small business community.
Yeah, but how small is small?
But said that
in England you have a lot more
medium
traditional style businesses who run quite lean, but they might have 2 people in the office, right? And 70 people who drive the trucks.
Yeah, no.
And it's not actually a very small business.
Yeah, no.
They do a lot of business. But, in terms of the people that are coming to BNI, there's 1 or 2 people faces that you'll see. It's a whole different.
And I think that was the learning curve that you had was also the same learning curve that I had as well, in terms of actually there's no more, I can't open more groups. I can't do more with this community. I'm kind of I can give more support to them, but in terms of growing, there isn't that much space. And I think that was also a huge learning curve for me in terms of that.
I think if I were to do it again,
that's a great question. I should have thought of that.
If I were to do it again, I think it would need to come with a mix.
Yeah.
And I think I had the beginnings of that mix in the right place.
You're working with Monday, that's how you got in with them.
Right. But I didn't have enough senior people on my team to lean back on to support Monday and be present with the smaller clients. You know what I mean? So I wanted to create a bigger mix of clientele and still do everything that I was doing and really focus on the education for the small businesses, but also work more strategically with slightly bigger clients that could kind of, create some buffer in the margins.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I needed a few more senior level people in the business that could help bridge all of those gaps. You can't. And by the way, this is a lesson I've also learned a few times over at Monday as well. Is I have a team of 6. We're doing a lot. We have a lot of different domains. We do social, we do influencer, we do community. I'm part of the brand group. I work really, really closely on the brand level, on sort of the bigger decisions that are happening around where Monday goes, in terms of messaging and visually, which is what I love and where I want to be and where I want to learn from. But still, my team, they're not junior by any means, but my team still need a certain level of hands-on support from me, and there's not much buffer in the middle. So whenever you want to expand the scope of what you're doing as an individual or as a team, you need to have more layers to support that.
Yeah,
so that's just, and it's not about seniorities or titles, it's just about layers in terms of skill sets and abilities. So I think that's relevant whether you have a small business or a business in the UK, a business here, that you want to cater to the smaller businesses. There's a lot of that around, and there's a lot of need.
Yeah, for sure.
But you need to have different layers to it.
100%. And I think also, you can't rely exclusively on one income stream anyway, in whatever way you look at it. I've always had a few, and now they're all focused on networking, but and I'm looking to grow more as well. And, you've got to, I think, have as a brand a few different pockets of income. Relying exclusively on one thing is going to really say, and I've heard that message reiterated by many podcasts that I listen to as well.
Even the biggest businesses, by the way, right? Monday is incredibly successful. It's one of the most successful companies to come out of high tech in Israel.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's doing well.
We're doing well. But we also came to a point where the strategy needed to shift, and we needed to move away from having one product to multiple products.
Yeah.
The biggest businesses in the world have multiple products. You look at Microsoft, they have multiple products. You look at Google, they have multiple products.
Network with Helena, she has multiple products.
Helena has multiple products, exactly.
Very similar. No, I hear you. Interesting. Oh, this is, okay. Very, very interesting. And the last question before we move on to your failures, do you see a world in which, in some form, Bridie Castiel agency returns?
I'll never say never. I don't know if I would ever go back to the agency model. I think everything always depends on what I need and I'm looking for out of life, right? Back then I was looking for understanding how you do something at scale, and I got a lot of learnings from that from Monday. And I'm sure there's much more to learn still, but no, I think my next stages are really about doing things that really are just fun for me. I've put myself through a lot of challenges in a small amount of time, and I think I had an amazing business coach before still a little bit into being at Monday, actually. Chef Simon.
Oh, I heard she's wonderful.
She's incredible. And I think she got me through some of the hardest times
really nice
of my life. She used to laugh at me because, I was coming to her with these sort of challenges of, trying to juggle it all. And she's like, you quite literally bring it on yourself. Every single time you have put this thing on your plate and you didn't need to. It wasn't a necessary thing. But I follow what I'm passionate about. So I'm always guilty of sort of following the things that I love and then putting a lot on my plate and then working through the challenge of that. I don't know what things would look like moving forward. I don't think it would be an agency model.
Oh.
But I do think I have some more one-on-one work to give at some stage in my life.
Okay, amazing. So let's move to your failures. Oh, sorry.
Must we? Do we have to?
Okay. The first failure, which I thought was very interesting, they're actually all very interesting. I'm excited for them all, but firing my agency employees when things in my life changed.
Yeah. So this transition period, early 2022, I'd built a team that I really, really loved. Some really, really ambitious, go-getting individuals who I think came on board because they really saw the vision, and I think that they really believed in my business, and I was really, really lucky to have that. And my failure, I think, was not understanding that the break was coming, that the shift in me was on its way,
right,
and that I was going to need to change gears. I also didn't know that the opportunity to come into Monday was going to come when it did. And I couldn't have sort of foreseen myself stepping out of being a business owner and going into a company that was never, ever, ever something that I felt was on the table.
Really?
Never.
Really?
I still value my autonomy and my flexibility. And I had a young child at that point. We were still in the middle of COVID.
He's still quite young.
Yeah.
How old is
he's 7 in October.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He's a whole human.
That's a real human. Okay.
But he was a toddler then. As I said, I was going through a divorce. Like, there were so many things in my life that were changing, and I was trying to sort of hold on to one piece of stability, which was sort of the business, and not understanding that maybe that was the one thing that actually, for my own soul and growth, I needed to shift. So, like, I say it's a failure. I think it's a failure in sort of the naivety of not understanding how to navigate that and how to support them better. It's probably one of my bigger regrets. There wasn't really any other way around it, right? That change was coming and the business was going to close. But I think that the way things fell.
In what sense? You didn't feel you gave them enough warning?
I felt that I was still feeding them the vision. I was feeding myself the vision.
Oh, I see what you're
I wasn't
saying.
honest with myself, and so I wasn't able to be honest with them that this change was coming.
That's so interesting.
So it was such a big shock for them.
Really?
Yeah, it was a big. I think it was a big shock for them. It seemed like a big shock for them. It was a big shock for me. It was a huge shock.
I remember you telling me like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and then probably like 2 weeks later, it happened.
Yeah,
like
it was a quick turnaround.
It was a quick turnaround. So yeah, and I just think that we were all getting to this place where we were so close to sort of getting over the hill, so close to reaping the benefits of sort of all of that effort, so close to sort of moving through the hard stuff. I think for them, they were so close to really closing the loop on everything that they were learning from me and from the business that we were building together. And I feel that I took that away from them. A little bit. I don't feel like they walked out of that experience and said, you know what, like, okay, I'm bummed that I don't have a job now, but I gained a lot from it.
I'm sure they did 6 months later.
Maybe.
I'm sure they did.
Well, we'll ask them in another 10 years. But they were all really, really wonderful people who were giving a lot of themselves to learn as much as they could, as quickly as they could. They were, front facing with clients, small business clients, which is not easy. Yeah. So there were just, there were a lot of pressures on them and there was a lot of pressure on me. And I just think that my learning from that has really been to lead with transparency, even if it puts me at risk. right? I think I was just trying to hold it together until I knew what the answer was going to be, but that didn't let them prepare for that. So yeah, the way that I try to lead now is really always through transparency and honesty, even when I'm not quite sure of what that means or what that looks like yet.
When did you take on your first employee?
Wow. Before Levy was born.
Oh, wow, really early.
Yeah, I sort of had 2 waves of the agency. I took a bit of a downtime while I was pregnant because I had really severe sickness, so it was really hard for me to hold things together. But I had a couple of employees before I got pregnant with Levy, and then sort of wound things down a little bit. I sort of maintained a few of my own clients, and then yeah, when Levy was about 1, I sort of started to build things back up again.
At your peak, how many did you have?
6, 7.
Wow, it's a lot of people to be responsible for.
Yeah, it was a lot of people.
Were you enjoying leading that sort of team at that stage?
Yes, I was. It was really rewarding to see, like, okay, you pass on some information and then they do it, right? Like my passion then and what I was interested in then and what I'm still interested in now and a lot of what I've learned at Monday is like, okay, how do you make lots of things happen at the same time through lots of people? How do you take the impact that you can make and not just do it yourself, but delegate it, in a way that, leaves room for their failures, but still helps build upon things. So making things move at scale, like still is like a real topic of interest for me. So yeah, I think it was a really important learning point for me.
And when you closed, you had 6 employees also?
I think we were 7.
Oh, wow.
I think it was 7.
And how long between you telling them and then did you close? Was it pretty quick?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Gosh, listen, I'm sure they learned an incredible amount.
They learned to go to work for slightly bigger companies who can afford a little bit more leeway.
But I think what you said to me was really interesting, and it was that you believed you were not just fooling them, you were fooling yourself.
Yeah,
like you
100%.
Believed in something that wasn't really real either.
Yeah.
And I think as a business owner, that's really the biggest challenge, is actually just knowing, because I think also at the beginning, you are really believing in a dream. Like you have to, because there's nothing. You're just believing in the potential of what it could be. And there comes a certain point where you either have to make decisions to like actually have tangible results or keep. It's very challenging in business owner because you're believing in smokes and mirrors up until you're not, and it's very hard to know at which point.
I think you reach multiple points where you're like, I'm on the verge of giving up multiple times.
100%.
And most of the time you don't give up. Most of the time you don't make a big change until you do.
It's so random. It's just, I always say, like, success in business, like you just keep deciding that it's working. Like it's every single day you wake up and are like, this will work.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have that pressure every single day, but that's really what it is. It's just
100%. I have to say, I really, sorry to take it back to Monday, the behemoth, but I really look at the leadership team at Monday, the CEOs of Monday who've, been driving this uphill for a long time now.
Where was Monday founded? What year? Do you know?
Oh, I don't even recall off the top of my head. They're like a long time in, like a decade, I think. It's really bad of me. I should know that. But it's in the past. We are where we are now. We're doing what we're doing now.
I was just wondering.
But for them, no matter how they're feeling every single morning, no matter whether they're in despair or they're tired or they don't know what they're doing anymore or they don't know if it's going to work, like they've had all the same feelings. They get up and they continue to build and inspire a culture that gets thousands at this point of other people up every day going, I believe in this. This is secure. This is safe. This is moving forward. This is meaningful. I'm sure they're in the same boat. It's I hate the phrase fake it till you make it, but some days you have to wake up and, swallow the dream that you're selling in order to, you can't wake up and be like, you know what, today everyone, imagine one of the CEOs got up one morning, sent a Slack message that said, you know what, everything looks terrible, right? The results are really bad this quarter and I'm just like super, super tired and I'm not happy with it. And like, I don't know if we're going to be here next quarter. Like, imagine, of course, everything would crumble at that stage if you led with that much, honesty about your own moods and feelings. So yeah, it's a really difficult balance, I think, to find that honesty, that transparency, keep people moving forward, have people feel invested and then they've got the meaning that they're looking for in their roles, but know that you're only human and, some days are hard.
Yeah, I don't have any easy answers. It's interesting though. Thank you for sharing that. Failure 2 was investing too much time in the wrong team.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Wrong team is a strong word.
It was your word.
I know it was my own phrasing. I'm criticizing myself. Investing in the wrong team. I think it's very connected to the first failure, which is, you know, the you believe in it until you realize you can't believe in it anymore, right? There's what's the saying? Hire slow, fire fast.
Yes.
Now, I have a lot of trouble with that because who can afford to hire slow? You got shit to get done. You know, you need to make choices, and you never know it's the right one until you're already until they're already in. You know, it is a big leap of faith. You know, you do a handful of interviews. You think you get to know a person. You try to explore their expertise and where they stand and how they see things, but until you've hired and fired a few people, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But the fire fast, you know, it's really important to invest in people and know who you've hired, who you have, and what they need from you, how they need to go from A to B or C, right? And it's your job as a manager, as a people leader, to be invested in that. There is no such thing as the perfect person who walks in and is exactly what your company needs and knows the job inside out and brings themselves in the professional manner that you like or expect or need in your culture. There is no perfect person. So as a people manager, it's always about investing in people. And I think that one of the challenges I've had over the years is taking that gut feeling, knowing it's not the right fit, and then figuring out what to do with it. So the knowing how much and how long to invest for is really, really hard when you don't have any experience in people management. And I think there have been times that I have invested over and over and over and over again, at the expense of my other team members, at the expense of, you know, growing and leaning into the projects that we wanted to lean into, at the expense of the growth that other people have around of me and my team. And at the expense of the person themselves. I think there are a few people that I hung on to.
This was in the agency.
Also, but more so at Monday.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Just that inexperience, like from myself as a people manager, not knowing that actually I was probably holding them back from moving on to the next thing where they would be a little bit happier, whether the role would be more suitable for them, they'd be more engaged in the role, where they'd be set up for success more, where the culture would fit them better. You know, sometimes people need support finding where they're going to be or where they should be. And I have a habit of holding on to things until
you shouldn't.
Until it's obvious. You know, it's that sort of like it's the same thing as the first failure, really. Just sort of comes out in a different manner. Is, you know, you believe in it until you don't believe in it, and then it's done. So yeah, I think like moving forward, and none of my team should panic. But the sort of hire slow, fire a little bit faster, or maybe it's less about the firing and more about the honesty around the mismatch of expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
When something isn't working, it's hard to sell someone to their face like, this isn't working. But that honesty and that transparency helps them understand, like, okay, am I fully invested and I'm going to change this and grow into this role, or is this not the role for me? And then we can figure that out together.
Yeah, and I think it's also very much about the, like you said before, about the honesty of just of being honest. Because, you know, also someone being wrong for a role doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean, it just means that they're bad for that role specifically.
Yeah, or sometimes like business changes so quickly. Sometimes what you hired for 3 years later, just as, you know, like the expectations of the role or expectations of the team have changed. You know, it's something I face as well. You know, I've had a change in leadership and like expectations change, and we all have to move into that. You know, we can't fight it. We need to be where the business needs us to be, which is a very, very difficult intersection for middle management of, you know, where does the business need us to be versus where are we as humans and how can I help people get from that to that.
Sounds stressful.
It's
No, it really
incredibly
sounds
difficult,
stressful.
and I don't have the answers, but it's the failure that I have that sits with me is like, you know, how can I continue to lead with a little bit more like honesty around expectations, around needs, even when it's hard for them to hear, even when it's hard for me to deliver. Like the business expects A, B, C from us now. I know that we're not there yet, but we really need to focus here. And I know that that's uncomfortable, and I'm going to be with you through it, and we're going to do it together. But like, it's gotta happen.
Have you improved with that, do you think, at your time on Monday and being more open and honest?
Yes, I think so. I hope so.
Do you think it's a British thing? Because we're very much trained not to be open and honest.
Interesting. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I think I don't know if other people would look at me and say, "Oh, Bridie, she's a people pleaser," but I am a bit of a people pleaser. Like, I'm known for being quite direct and open,
Which is the
but
positive
but
thing.
internally, when it's real and
Yeah.
when it's deep, and I you know, there are things that I struggle with that, you know, I wanna maintain the peace. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I really care about delivering a message in a way that is going to help them grow, not just put them in a state of panic or whatever. But that's hard. It's hard when you have 6 people.
Oh, really?
It's hard when you have 3 of them in the US.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are lots of cultural differences there. There's only a couple of hours a day where, you know, our work days overlap. Everything's by Zoom. I only see them a couple of times a year.
That's really hard. I didn't realise that.
Yeah. So
that's really, I don't know. I as a Brit, and I'm like, I was very much raised in like a very different from like a very hardcore British Jewish circle. But as a woman in that world, or as a teenager growing up, it was very much like make yourself small and make yourself appeasable and nice. And, you know, because the most important thing in my circle was, of course, to get married, despite it being 2024 in the 2020s when I was growing up. And so for me, it's very natural for me to like say very little white lies to make people happy. Or on the other hand, not even that, but, you know, I've been in situations in networking with men very rarely, but it happens that they are. My mega networking event a few years ago, an older man came up to me and put his arm around my waist, which my husband was standing next to me, and he was ready to go crazy, and he was very upset with me that I didn't say anything. And I said, yeah, but we don't say anything. That's how it was also a member at the time.
Yep.
You know, we don't say things.
Don't cause a scene.
Don't cause a scene.
Don't make them uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's happened. I was also at a tech conference, and someone I knew actually, and he was drunk, and he like hugged me and touched me. It was very, and again, this is rare. This is not the common.
Well, you say that it's happened to me multiple times.
Yeah.
I think it's actually very common. I think there's very few women who haven't been put in a situation where they either have to say something and feel that they're going to make people uncomfortable or make a scene, or just, you know, just let it pass, like, you know, look our clue, as they say, like nothing happened.
It's a big embarrassment for me that I'm someone who like puts myself as like someone who understands networking and who really you know, works it and whatever, and I jokingly say networking queen. Obviously that's branding, but you know, and yet I've never once had a situation where a man has made me feel uncomfortable, and I've had the gumption to actually say what you're doing is unacceptable, and I wish I had. It's not how I was raised, and it's very hard to move over from that conditioning of being like, get your hands off me, this is not respectful. It's very, very challenging, especially when your husband's like, but you have to say something, and you're like, you don't know what it is to grow up as a woman, and like, that's not your reality. It hasn't happened often. I'm like, it happened more in England, I have to say, than it did here. But I would also go to like a lot of property events. I was also much younger, so I was much like, you know, it was a different vibe. I'm now very openly married, like, you know, I tell everyone I'm married, so I think that definitely changes things in whatever sense. And I went to a lot of property events in England, and the property events in England are like hardcore drinking. And, you know, there's women sent there with a very clear agenda, frankly. They wear certain clothes. So I think it's more accepted. Not that it's acceptable, but it's certainly more accepted. I've definitely had it here. But it's less, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think that conditioning is very real, and no matter where you grow up, but certainly, you know, coming from the UK or maybe even America,
the Americans are a little bit better than we are. I think they're a little bit, certainly the New Yorkers are a little bit more direct. I think us Brits are like very like, everyone should be happy and everyone should be comfortable and everyone should be, you know, and we shouldn't say anything and we shouldn't rock the boat.
Right.
It's something
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Is I think for me, the second failure came out of, by the way, there are so many more than 3, but you know, you asked me to pick 3. So, the second failure really does come out of that place of like, I want to make it work. I will work harder to make it work.
Exactly.
I will continue to invest. That's what I mean when I say, like, you know, in investing in the wrong team members. Like, it was to their detriment that I kept doing that. Maybe I didn't give them the room to step up. They didn't understand clearly what was expected of them because I wasn't delivering it clearly enough because I didn't want to hurt or be too direct. It's a very real thing, but I will continue to work on.
Yeah, I think it was all Brits will have to work on being more direct.
Yeah.
I think, and also have conversations with people, like potential sales calls on the phone, and after a few seconds I'm like, this is a waste of my time, and I'll never hang up on them. And my husband will be sitting next to me, we sometimes work at home together, and he'll be like, tell them to go fuck them. Like, what are you doing? It's enough already. But it's very hard for me just to say, like, okay, like, I think this conversation probably has reached its natural end, like, let's hang up, because
okay, you have a little bit more work to do than I.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible.
My response to that is lo relevanti by toda.
Yeah, no, it's really no. I'm saying like it's really, really hard for me. Like it's a really big challenge. Listen, I can't blame it all on my upbringing. I will do, but I probably shouldn't because I'm 32. I was gonna say I'm 26. I'm 32. So it comes a time we have to take responsibility. But it's something I've really.
Yeah.
I've also never had a job, which I think, in a way, meant I never had to. So certain things I'm like suspended in like a certain reality.
Yeah. I totally see that. Like my being forced and encouraged by my previous manager, who's an excellent manager and really taught me a lot. That was a necessity. That was the kindness that I needed to bring. Is the honesty. When you have more people around you to give you that
100%.
feedback or expectations that are set by someone other than yourself, you know, in terms of where things are going and business goals and whatnot. You're kind of forced into that. So I think that's one of the main lessons and main like things that I've been able to take away from the last few years of being a people manager.
Never having a job has not done me any favors. It is where we are, but like I think there's a lot that I've lost by not having that structure, and especially as a British person. Okay, the last failure, which I think is similar in vein, is holding on to things and getting stuck. Do you want to speak a bit to that?
Yeah. I think I wrote something on LinkedIn about this a few weeks ago, and it's that my team have a double-edged sword in having me as a manager. On one hand, I raised this industry. I was raised with this industry. I was part of it. You know, I know it and feel it and breathe it inside out. And there are very few people who specialize in what I specialize in and have stayed specialists in that. I'm very, very close to the work that they do. I have a lot of opinions about it. And I really, really want to, like, I came to Monday to see just how far I could push my own skill set and knowledge within the context of a succeeding business, a brand that people believe in, resources, human resources, financial resources. Like, if you put me in the best possible conditions, what could I possibly do with that in this space? So, you know, I have my own personal goals for being here. So on one hand, you know, my team get somebody who gets it, right? When we don't hit the KPIs, I'm not all in it and going like, well, you know, I'm not even, some people report to people who question what the KPIs are to begin with. Like, why are we measuring engagement? Or why are we doing this? My team don't have that, right? They have somebody who understands the space inside and out, who gets it, who gets the challenges, who gets it that one day LinkedIn can just, you know, change the algorithm and all the videos we've produced are suddenly tanking. Like, I get it. So they don't have to feel...
It's nice to hear that Monday has the same challenges I do, but carry on. It's
We're
very
all
validating.
in the same boat.
Very, very validating. We'll come back to LinkedIn in a second, but carry on.
We're all in the hands of the social media network behemoths as well. But so I get it.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I get it. You know, so like they have a lot of understanding and a lot of justification or a lot of explaining that they don't need to do or make with me. And on the other hand, I have like really strong feelings about what I want us to achieve as a team and where I want to go, where I want to push the boundaries. Along the way, I'm a certain number of years into my career, into this expertise. The people on my team are all coming from different places and different levels, and they came here to learn and grow. And I came to be their manager to enable that for them. So it's always about this like closing the gap. So my difficulty is the letting go of things, right? Letting them jump in, knowing that they we'll call it fail because we're talking about failures today, knowing that they might and probably will fail, knowing that someone else across the business might go, like, what did you think about that post, Bridie? You know, and like, I'll back my team 100%.
Yeah.
But knowing that there could have been improvement there, or if I'd done it, I would have done it differently. So finding that balance between like letting them run with it and bringing in like good constructive feedback that enables them to grow to get to that point, but also letting go at a certain point. That's like a daily
really
challenge.
Hard.
That's a post by post challenge, right? Like that's something that comes up every single day.
Do you look at every post that's sent out or no?
No, and this is dependent on people come and go. My team's changed over the years. 4 out of the 6 people on my team have been with me less than a year at this stage.
Wow.
It's everyone's at their own place and needs a different level of attention from me, a different level of approval process, a different level of feedback. But again, like on a post by post basis, like, what is the stage where we don't have the approval process anymore, and then we just go to like a feedback loop after they've gone up, like and at what stage do I step back completely and let them develop their own tone of voice and stop having editing feedback remarks? Like it's really difficult.
Your team, tell me exactly what your team does in the sense that they have to do X amount of posts on LinkedIn, or how does it work and what's the output?
Yeah, so I have 2 community managers on my team. I have 1 social media manager and I have 2 social engagement managers.
Okay.
And an influencer marketing manager. So let's put influencer marketing on the side because it's slightly different. I've got, the 2 community managers. They create content. They're there to foster certain communities. They each have separate roles and responsibilities. But they are, strategically building a community for Monday, and they have to create content and events.
On what platforms?
Various platforms. We have one community that's on Slack, one on Facebook, one online, which is our own sort of forum. We have regional Facebook groups that are in different languages. We have all kinds of things going on. So that's one piece. Then you've got the social piece where the engagement managers are sort of responsible for all of the answering replies, handling tricky customer situations when they find their way to social if someone's complained. And then you have the social media manager who's responsible for sort of the content and strategy that we're broadcasting outwards. So there's a lot of, Thank you for that face. Exactly. There's a lot of pieces that must work together, but also have to work independently. And again, everyone's at a different place.
You need more than 6 people, really, don't you?
I couldn't possibly manage more than 6 people.
Okay, fine. But can 6 people do that work? Is it feasible?
Yes, we just have to be focused about what each person really is trying to achieve.
What social media channels are you most active on right now?
LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, way somewhere in the back.
Interesting, okay.
They don't have sort of their own dedicated strategies.
They don't?
Right now. No.
Okay. Why? Because you feel there's no...
Don't see any reason to invest there at the moment.
Interesting. Not even on Facebook ads in terms of...
Oh, okay. So ads.
Okay, sorry.
Ads for Monday is a whole other team.
Oh, really?
Whole other department.
Wow.
They have many people.
And where do they invest most there? Where are they investing mostly in?
Facebook,
LinkedIn,
so. And more sort of TikTok and Reddit, but that's sort of on the lower end.
I hear Reddit's really making a comeback. Facebook, I think, unless you're paying for ads, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's mirrored also in my world. Okay, so talk to me a little bit, because obviously a lot of people listen to this may have their own social media teams, or they may be freelance. I'd be interested to hear from someone who really is an expert. Talk to me about, let's start with LinkedIn, let's say. So you said the algorithms recently have changed.
I think things are always evolving and changing.
Sure.
I think there's the official advice, that comes from LinkedIn,
which
or
is,
Instagram,
in my experience,
or whatever.
bullshit, I have to say.
I think that they push the narrative that they would like to have on their platform, not necessarily how their platform works. Then there's the feeling that the people on the ground have, right? And my social media manager, Ash, weeks and weeks ago, he started saying, video's not working for us on LinkedIn, video's not working, and all the reports and information and official recommendations is video is growing, but we're not seeing it, we're not feeling it in the results.
This is on the business page or on personal pages?
Business.
Okay, carry on, sorry.
Yeah. So, and it's okay, hold on a second, what are we seeing? And being a social media manager a good social media manager is about having that feeling in your gut. You won't have the numbers for another month on this. and you will have to make a bet on what is the right way to go. And it's, you know, sort of like a a magic carpet ride where you hop on, you go, okay, seems like carousels might be the thing. Are we gonna shift to carousels this month and like find out later if that was the right move? You know, that's sort of the game that we have. So
I've seen also, I remember at one point doing videos and they would automatically do well if our LinkedIn were pushing them. And I would say in the past, for a while now, for a good few months, I don't do them often, but when I have put them on, they do terribly in LinkedIn for sure. Also, LinkedIn completely is the official thing is that if you don't pay for premium, it won't affect how well you do it. For a personal account, it won't affect how well you do. And I got rid of premium at one point and just no wanted to try, see what happens. And I wasn't paying at all for LinkedIn. And I saw that my posts immediately did less well. There's no question. Like, if you want to succeed on, in my opinion, if you want to succeed on LinkedIn as a personal account, you have to be paying for premium.
Interesting.
And you have to really be doing outreach, which I don't do, and I've seen the effects of that, but I'm willing to take that on me. But I had to pay for premium. It wasn't worth not.
Interesting. I have to say, and you'll notice that I never ever post about these things. Like, I'm, you know, one of the few people that like I don't subscribe. I don't even read it, right? Like you know, what should you be doing on XYZ platform now? How is the algorithm changing? Like, I've never held sessions on this. I never post about it. And there's one really good reason for it is like, I really believe that there's a time and a place for everything. And not everything is about every post performing to its maximum. Everything should, if you don't know what role each type of thing is playing in your strategy, then maybe there you have a problem. But, you know, it could be that LinkedIn doesn't favor video right now, but the best format to convey what you need to convey to your target audience at the time that they're going to see it is video. And so you get 10 views, don't care. It was the right 10 views. So if you know what like role each kind of piece of content is playing in your strategy, then the algorithms are going to come and go, and it's all very invisible and all very inaccessible and not very transparent. So I generally take the approach of, you know, okay, we might have a lower month or a higher month, it doesn't matter. As long as we're going in the right direction and we really understand like why we're doing each thing, then we're going to be fine.
I think it's also about analysing, you know, what purpose exactly is LinkedIn for you. Like, I have people who, you know, get most of their clients through LinkedIn. So for them, getting eyes on their posts is incredibly important. And I think that there are very clear ways for the algorithms to help with that. I also see in Israel specifically a lot of terrible content doing well because for sure they're using pods. I know people personally who I'm convinced are using pods to go viral. I'm not convinced they have one client, but I know that they are definitely using pods.
Listen, if your goal is mass views, right? Like mass reach. If your goal is attention, let's call it attention, right? You can buy attention in many, many different ways. You can buy attention through tactics. You can buy attention through the type of content. You can buy attention through being very clickbaity. If your only goal is attention, there are many ways to do that. That's fine. It doesn't mean that it's right though for your business. Like, you know, on Monday, I'm sure there are lots of things that we could do that could get us more attention, but it's not what we would want to say about ourselves, so we wouldn't do it. Does that mean we have to take the slower track sometimes? Yes. But is it the more quality track? Yes.
It's interesting because, as I'm saying, I'm thinking of someone specifically who I know does a lot of business on LinkedIn, and his posts do extremely well, and that's because they're very good, and also he does outreach, and he does kind of all the things that LinkedIn wants him to do to really improve his posts. So he's doing it in an honourable way. He's not in a pod. He also does a lot of outreach, and that's how he's getting his clients. Tachlis. It's not so much, I don't know that anyone's really converting through posts necessarily. I know that I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think people know me from LinkedIn. And I really recently had a real crisis of faith with LinkedIn of being like, I'm never going to grow more on this platform than I already am. I'm miserable using it. There's no real room for creativity in the sense that, you know, it's text and it's a picture and that's it. And I kind of was like really done with it. Recently going to a conference, people did know me from LinkedIn. It reminds me that it is important I continue to have a presence there. But it was a real like, oh my gosh, like I hate this. And that's why I've really recently moved to Instagram, where I'm an absolute nobody, and boy, do I feel it. But I think a lot of these people who are doing like extremely well on LinkedIn, I'm not convinced they're getting real return. Like, I'm questioning if they're getting a real, like, actual tangible return on investment on those posts. Because I think a lot of the actual money comes through the outreach of like going into direct messages. I don't think it's really so much through the posting. Interesting.
It's hard for me to say because I've never done any outreach in my own life.
It's a different thing.
I have always gone all in on brand. And that's why
it's
I
worked for you.
work within a brand team. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in it. I know that it's not measurable, and I know that even for a business like Monday, everything that we do on social has enormous impact. I will never be able to prove it. Never be able to prove it. It's fine. Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But the fact that people, like, the first generator of business is that people know who you are and what you do. If you're able to achieve that through social media, you're already winning. You're already above the rest. The next thing is whether people recognize you and remember you when they want, we're talking about the funnel here, like brand awareness, brand consideration. So do people think of you when they need some help with networking or social media or whatever? Like, are you the first person that comes to mind? Are you the second person that comes to mind? Are you the recommendation from a friend or a friend? Are you in the consideration pool? That's where, by the way, deciding what you stand for and whether you're going to play by the rules of just getting attention can fail you. Because if you're doing everything just for attention, and you're getting that brand awareness, but when you get to the consideration phase a little bit further down, they're like, that's not somebody I actually want to work with.
I know people like that.
You've lost.
I can think of them too.
So it's all about building a strategy and understanding, and maybe you can come out of this chat and go back and look at your LinkedIn and
I'm already there. I'm already
give it another look.
I'm already firstly, LinkedIn is minimal effort for me because I'm doing it for so long now. So to write a post can take 10 minutes. So it's a low muscle, whatever it is. I definitely, when I go to events, people know me from LinkedIn. Like, I went recently to an event, and someone from a very big company had seen me on LinkedIn, and it created a conversation. So there's no question for me that that it is useful for me. I think there's so much dross there. I think there's so many crap content. Like, I have to go through it every day and like and comment for 20 minutes the algorithms, which I do, and I hate doing it. And that makes me really sad because there are things I do and I do in my business. That's the cost of doing business. But to scroll and to just see crap after bullshit posts and bad advice and just so that was very hard for me. But I put my big girl pants back on, and I'm okay with it. And now I'm moving towards Instagram, where I'm doing terribly. But I really enjoy making the content. It's exciting me. It's making me feel like, oh my gosh, wow, there's so much more potential on Instagram in terms of video content and what you can do with that, and so much more space for creativity, that I'm really enjoying it. I'm hopeful that eventually I will get some ROI there as well, but it's going to be a long slog, and I'm ready for that long slog. And I also have, thank God, the financial freedom that my business is doing well enough that I have the time to invest in something that isn't going to succeed tomorrow, which is a very nice place to be, and not the place I was in 2019 or 2020, where everything felt so much more like, oh my gosh, this has to succeed. So listen, of course I do cry when posts don't do well. There's no question. Of course, when I invest hours into making a post, then it bombs. So of course it's sad. But the financial stress is not there, and that's that's a big thing. But it's interesting for me to hear that Monday, obviously very different scale, but it's having similar dilemmas to what I, on a much, much smaller scale, are having. It's interesting to hear that, the challenges of social media are present everywhere. It's just at a different scale.
Yeah, 100%. We're all subject to the same platforms. Potentially worse is I can I'm lucky to have budget, but I can also drop a huge portion of that budget going all in on a new video series, and then a few weeks later, so we're trying to mass film for efficiency's sake, but social media moves so fast that can actually be a colossal waste of money. It's the same challenges, they just take a slightly different shape.
Yeah, it's funny because I now have a strategy which I wouldn't have had before, to be honest, but I would say the past 6 months to a year, I've really now have a strategy. I have a clear calendar of what happens in my business, and it's nice having that strategy. It makes you feel very confident, but also I do things very last minute and nimble because I'm a freelancer, but having a strategy in social media can also bite you in the ass because it is changing all the time, and it's interesting. I think it's so hard as a business and as a business owner to have these algorithms, and they just I
have to say though, the one thing that I always loved about personal branding over business brands is that freedom. You your special sauce, your edge is you.
Yeah.
People see the face, they get to know you, they know your tone of voice belongs to a real human being, they know that your challenges or the content that you're putting out, the things that you want to say are coming from a real place. People feel that they're getting attached to you, and you have the freedom to decide what you want to stand for yourself.
Yeah.
I can't make that decision on Monday's behalf. Monday has, brand messaging and a tone of voice and many different things to take into consideration. We have investors and analysts who check in on our social, it's like there's a lot of factors that go in that sort of require us to be in a certain kind of box. Whereas me, for my personal branding, like I can mostly just open my mouth and go, here's what I want to say to the world today, and it's on me. You know what I mean? Like, if people don't like it, that's the impression they get about me. Okay, so it will come back and maybe affect me, but it doesn't affect a business that I'm responsible for. I think I know that there are a lot of small business owners that really struggle with social media, who don't have I call it the writer's privilege. They don't love writing content, they don't love making content, they don't connect to it. It feels like a big chore for them. It feels like they're putting themselves out there in a way that makes them feel really uncomfortable. And yet that is your special sauce.
And I agree with that 100%. I think the only flip side to that is that people kind of think that they know you and have this like parasocial relationship with you. And I think that happens to me a lot, where people like approach me on the street, which happens rarely, but it happens rarely. It happens to be an attention seeker, so I love that and I'm happy. Please always approach me. I'm happy for that. But and they kind of think that they know me, and it's like, I like put I'm very honest. I never lie on social media, but I'm certainly, there's a huge amount of my life that they do not know about. And I think that they really forget that. And I think that that's always a challenge of them kind of feeling that they really know you intimately, or actually you don't really know.
I think that's fine. I think that, people feeling that they know enough of who you are to have some kind of attachment, even if it's a one-way attachment. Bottom line, like you're doing that to sell something.
And I happen to
enjoy working.
it. I'm very lucky. I love creating content. I love being open on social media. Like I don't have a particular problem with that. I think I'm way more open than my husband would like. I'm not as open as I would like, so it's a real balance there, and he's really opened himself up, and I'm very grateful, because it's not his natural way of being. And I love when people approach me mostly, which obviously is very self-centered, but I'm a Leo, so that's who I am.
So I'm a Capricorn. I find it very uncomfortable. Lots of people still to this day, which surprises me, approach me.
No part of you loves it.
I feel really awkward, because anyways, I'm really bad with names and faces. So I feel like this is a special skill that you have as a networking
No, I'm terrible with
queen,
names and faces.
where you like, or you
I'm good at faking.
Okay, I'm bad at faking it, and I just feel terrible when someone comes up to me and they're already jumping into a conversation as if it's a conversation we just had like 5 minutes ago, and I'm like trying to like place the face, place the name, figure out, do I know them at all, or do they just know me? What are we talking about?
No.
Like, oh, I saw your post about I really wanted to talk to you about that, and I'm like, wait, hold a second.
No, you're not alone.
Where are you from? Like, what's your name? Sorry, they talk to me like they know me, and
but that's a
they
challenge.
do, and I, don't have that same sense of familiarity.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That is the challenge. But I remember I was walking in Tel Aviv, and I was like meeting a friend. I went to wave at the friend, and someone saw me and thought I was waving at them. So they came up to me, and I had no idea. And I mean, no, and they were talking to me like they knew me, and I felt I was in a position where I didn't feel I could be like,
yeah.
Thank God it happened to me. They came the next day. I found them on LinkedIn. Like I worked out who they were. Thank God. But it does happen where those situations are not.
Especially when it's out of context.
Yeah,
you're not prepared to see.
Yeah, I was just on a Shabbos day. Like I wasn't. So that can also be a challenge. But listen, this is very rare. It's not that people are approaching me by any stretch all the time. Happens here and there. I think we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so grateful for your openness. I think it was a really interesting conversation. And I think especially for people who are looking to market their business or in marketing in general, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. Can I finish by saying one thing? I think like my main learning from all of these things is really leading people, being responsible for people comes at you in lots of different ways that maybe you're not anticipating. And it's such a huge responsibility. There's only one way to grow through that, and it's to make the mistakes and work through them anyways. But yeah, I feel really special and honored to be in a position where, other people's learning and how they feel about their job, is essentially down to the experience they have with me on a day-to-day. And I take that really, really seriously. So yes, I've come to share these very, very painful lessons and failures with you, and I hope to continue to to work on them.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all our listeners. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you for season 3.